came about 9 o'clock London time yesterday night that Boris Johnson is bowing out of the Conservative and Unionist Party leadership contest. So remember, we know that Liz Truss has been forced out by her own. Boris Johnson never directly said trying to get the prime ministership himself. It was all through his minions. So he didn't have the courage of his conviction. Yeah, I'm going for it, to make some public statement, to do an interview. But then, so he broke off his holiday in the West Indies. He came back and he was phoning around loads of Conservative MPs to try and say he was doing it. One of his closest allies in politics, the Honourable Jacob Rees-Mogg, who's now the business secretary if memory serves, and he was saying, yes, Boris Johnson is going for it. But it showed a lack of conviction. Boris, why did he vacillate? You might recall the 2017 Conservative electoral contest when David Cameron stood down as Prime Minister, the one that Theresa May eventually won. And Boris Johnson was going for it initially. Michael Gove was supposed to be Boris Johnson's right-hand man. The last possible moment, poignarded Johnson in the back and said he's manifestly unsuitable. I'm going it for myself. So what a slime ball Gove is. And Johnson bottled at that point. He could have carried on. He might not have won, but he would have got close. He wouldn't have disgraced himself. So it shows you just how unstable, how unreliable Johnson is. Can't even rely on himself. Anyway, Penny Mordaunt's in the running, and Penny Mordaunt's the only one to have granted interviews, to release a video completely substance-free, but just a feel-good video about her Portsmouth background and with stirring music and sentimental scenes and so on, and very light on policy. But anyway, she at least has had a public campaign. But like she's coming last. 23 members of Parliament came out of the woodwork to say they're going to nominate her. Remember, you need a proposer, a seconder, plus 100 others. They set the bar very high of the 350 Conservative MPs who can vote. Don't forget that the chair of the 1922 committee, seeing as he's administering the election, is not permitted to vote. That's Sir Graham Brady. So Rishi Sunak easily cleared that a couple of days ago, and at least 123 MPs publicly pledged to him. Boris Johnson had 53 publicly pledged. And then Boris Johnson was saying, well, no, I've got more on my side. I've made 102, but I just got to bow out because, yes, I could have got to the final two. Penny Mordaunt was going to be eliminated. And remember, closing nominations is today, Monday, 2 p.m. Only two people in the contest, with Rishi Sunak in first place, Boris Johnson in second place. And then it would go to the mass members of the Conservative Party, an online vote by Thursday. The new Prime Minister appointed on Friday. But the only two candidates still in the race are Rishi Sunak and Penny Mordaunt. And Rishi Sunak is far, far ahead of Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson's only 53 supporters. Even if all of them nominated Penny Mordaunt, she still wouldn't make it. But some of those people who formerly supported Boris Johnson will now support Rishi Sunak, say it's inevitable, better get on with it, reunite the party, and so on. So Johnson said he could have won, he could have become Prime Minister again, but he didn't have sufficient support in the parliamentary party. It would have been cataclysmic if Johnson had come back. How on earth could the Conservative Party explain to the public that his own cabinet that he handpicked had to kick him out in July for dishonesty, incompetence, and unethical behaviour, only to bring him back 3 months later? And what sense does that make? Why do we have to have Liz Truss then for 6 disastrous weeks? It would seem like farcical, a complete shit show. And the pollsters have shown Rishi Sunak is the most popular of the three with the general public. With Rishi Sunak as Prime Minister, the Conservative Unionist Party has a chance in the next election. It doesn't have a chance with either the other two in charge. It's a difficult situation to take over. The Conservatives won 4 elections on the trot. You can't win them all. Labour are way, way ahead in the polls. Remember the last election, the age it became more likely to vote Conservative than Labour was 43. That's now 57. So Rishi was more moderate. I know he was a Leaver, although that's actually the majority opinion in the country. Majority opinion has shifted, though. 56% of people want to rejoin the European Union, as opposed to 48% who wanted to stay in. Rishi Sunak is young enough. He's not too young. He was a good Chancellor of Exchequer. He's pragmatic. He's non-ideological. He seems to have a happy family life. No skeleton is covered. His wife's tax affairs were entirely legal. The one thing about him is attending a lockdown party and being fine. But hey, nobody's perfect. Obviously, he's visibly an ethnic minority person, which will appeal to people who don't usually vote Conservatives in many cases, make it a bit more difficult for Labour to make these bogus accusations of racialism against the Conservative and Unionist Party. So Boris Johnson, good riddance. I know he achieved a lot in terms of Brexit and he won a stunning election victory for the Conservatives, but it all went wrong very quickly after that because of his completely cavalier attitude and his mendacity and things like that. He's just deeply unserious. Vainglory is what motivates him. He just saw the party as a vehicle for his own self-aggrandizement, and that's it. And everything else would be cast aside. Didn't matter at all if he brought down the party and the country in flames around him, so long as he could feed his ego, which is binging on it. So I'm sure Rishi Sunak will not appoint him to the cabinet. Will say you're just going to be a backbencher. Your time is over. You're 58. You had 3 years as prime minister. You had several years as other cabinet posts, such as foreign secretary, and no, we're not having you back because you were pushed out by your own cabinet in disgrace. So that'll be that. I'm sure Penny Mordaunt will be kept on post, maybe given a more senior position such as deputy prime minister, as well as the 2 other officers, leader of the House of Commons and Lord President of the Council. Even though she's a woman, it's called Lord President of the Privy Council, not Lady President. Perhaps I should adapt that. To raise Coffey, a bit of a non-entity, will no doubt be removed as Deputy Prime Minister. So I think it's very good that Boris Johnson's not coming back. Michael Howard said it would be catastrophic if that happened. Lord Hague, the erstwhile leader of the Conservative Unionist Party in very difficult days, he said that Johnson coming back was the worst idea he's heard in 46 years of Conservative Party membership. I mean, let's not forget why Johnson was forced out and he was deeply unpopular. The only politician even more unpopular than Johnson is Liz Truss. Johnson was on minus 60 in the approval ratings when he was kicked out. Liz Truss is on minus 70. Why on earth should the Conservative Party bring him back? It's astonishing. There's some fanatical Johnsonites out there, his loyalists who wanted to return him to office, who thought he never should have been defenestrated in the first instance. So I just am astonished how utterly purblind these people are. So I think Johnson's just not going to hold a high office again. I think his days in frontline politics are over. He can go to the world lecture circuit. He should write a history of the Ukraine. He can do other things like that. He can have fun clowning about. But I think he shouldn't be allowed anywhere near number 10 Downing Street. There'll be an adult in the room, and that'll be Rishi Sunak, which is actually quite reassuring. Keep the others in position, particularly Jeremy Hunt. We've had far too much change already. What we need is a bit of continuity. We need to be a little bit bland. That's it. I know Johnson was never very vanilla. So thank you so much for watching my video. Make sure you subscribe on Patreon and donate to you on PayPal. Thanks for the donation the other day, by the way, someone. Goodbye.